Do you ever feel like you are stuck in an old pattern or an old behavior that just keeps showing up again and again? You try to get rid of it, but the struggle shows up when you get out of a relationship or when you get into a relationship or when you start to go for that new promotion at work, or maybe the struggle shows up every time you're alone. Whatever it is, it seems to have you wound around it, and it seems to be in control of you instead of you being the one in charge. It may even start to feel like you can't get out of the old problem and like it's going to be part of your life no matter what. If this sounds like something that you are in the middle of, or if it sounds like a part of life that you relate to, this might be a good talk for you. Hi, I'm Erin Del Toro. I'm a certified clinical hypnotherapist, and what I do and the kind of therapy that I use is proven to work the fastest, to last the longest, and to be the very most effective in the world when it comes to behavior change, when it comes to emotional change, and when it comes to trauma recovery. I work with all kinds of behavior and emotional change and all kinds of trauma recovery, from childhood trauma to, trauma that maybe we go through in our everyday lives, or situational trauma that shows up. However, today's talk is going to be primarily on pornography and quitting pornography, quitting masturbation, getting rid of old sexual addictions or old sexual tendencies that tend to show up again in life. And it's a pretty common issue in today's world. It's a pretty common problem because of the way pornography is situated, so readily available, so easily available. And when they go to do a study on porn users versus non-porn users and see the difference in brains, we no longer actually have any control groups. There's no groups large enough that aren't of a niche group, like a particular type of religion, where we have no porn users. So it's becoming a pretty widespread issue, but one of the big problems is it's becoming a pretty acceptable issue to far too many people. Now, if you've been struggling with this for quite a while, you know how it can hold you back. You know that you might start to feel like you've got it tackled and like it's behind you, but then one little thing sets you off and you're back in the spiral again of porn. Or you are on a work trip and you're alone and you find yourself in an environment where porn suddenly is back there. Or maybe you're in a circumstance of life where you're not getting very much sex, or you don't have much of an ability to have a sexual release with a partner you love, so you've been turning to porn pretty often. Well, this keeps us back in a number of ways, physiologically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. We'll talk about some of those as we go through this talk today. But I want you to go ahead and just imagine what it would be like for you if you no longer had to be stuck in the old cycle. What it would be like if you no longer had the struggle with you, and if you were feeling confident and in control again. No longer were you having to go to a men's group or having to go to an ecclesiastical leader or feel like you had to put a filter on your phone, or do the thing where you get on social media and you kind of pretend that you're looking at social media, but part of you knows that you're really trying to stir up some of those feelings and then find yourself right back in porn again, right? So what would it feel like for you to not have any of that stuff going on, instead to be in control, feeling confident, feeling like you've got your power back again, feeling like you've got your light again? I would love for you to have that experience. Now, what we do here is the most effective method when it comes to getting rid of pornography of anything I've ever heard of out there. And today I want to talk about 3 main reasons why it works, why this is going to be such an effective method for you, and maybe talk about also what's not working for you as well, so we get real clear on that. Now, we do in our office have a 95% success rate when it comes to getting rid of porn, and when it comes to getting rid of sex addiction or masturbation issues. And the reason we have this high success rate is because our clients are following some protocols that are different and unique than they would typically do in regular therapy or in group therapy or any other kind of book that you'd read or anything that you're being told to do out there. Now, there are 3 vital but little known principles that are game changing and really important for you to know things that aren't going to work for you, things that are going to work for you, and why. And we'll go through all those here today when it comes to getting rid of your porn problem. And they're the 3 things that we stick by to get those really high success rates. Porn can be a really, really sticky behavior and a difficult one to get rid of because of a number of reasons. Number one is that it's super easy to keep quiet. We can really keep it to ourselves, keep it on the down low. And like I said before, it's socially acceptable. Far too many people are saying, oh, this is normal. I can't tell you the number of times that I have watched a TV show and seen that it was like regular, just normal for people to use porn. You know, you say it, you mention it to your friends. Oh, I just, watched some porn and blah, 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 moved on with my day. This seems to be a normal thing that's being portrayed in the media as if it's something that's okay. And that obviously has a lot of bearing on our minds. And we'll get more into that deeper in our workshops here if you do end up going through our program, and talk more about why your mind's getting programmed that way and how it's getting programmed and then how to deprogram it. So it can be used for a stress relief and an escape pretty easy because of the kind of hormones that are secreted into the body. And when we are looking at porn, we start to get tons of oxytocin and vasopressin and prolactin, serotonin, endorphins, dopamine, all flooding through the system. Now, if we were actually having sex with a partner who we love and who we're committed to, all of those feelings, all of those chemicals bond us to the person and give us a very grounded sensation of love. And if we've got trust in that relationship, it even deepens this experience of oxytocin, even deepens the prolactin and the vasopressin, these bonding chemicals that we get here. But the same things are released, of course, when we are, like we just said, looking at porn. We get the same exact chemicals that come out through the body. And the reason that porn is so addictive is it starts to amp up our need for all these chemicals because they have nowhere to ground afterward. They have nowhere to ground. We get an excess of dopamine into the body or into the mind, and we get an excess of this particular type of byproduct from dopamine, which is delta phosphate. Delta phosphate lays cement of neural pathways back for you to remind you that to come back to this spot again, to remind you of how good it felt. And you get a surge of that and an overflow, and too much of it built up into the system, and it doesn't break down like some of the other hormones and chemicals that are transmitted into your body. So it sticks around, and when it comes to any kind of addictive issue, it really starts to drive this in, and it starts to actually change your epigenetics. And it starts to leak out into your genetic code that this addiction is going to be part of what regular life is for you. We get deeper into that on some other workshops too. But part of the reason that it's so difficult to get away from. Now, what also starts to happen is your brain starts to change. You start to have less control up here in your willpower, your prefrontal cortex, logical, analytical thinking. You have less ability back here to manage some of your creative points, and then those connection points from prefrontal cortex back into these creative spaces, the caudate nucleus back there, the pitumen, they start to weaken as well. And so your brain becomes less strong in general. And one of the really kind of scary things that is happening as the brain shifts and changes, and as the brain starts to connect itself to porn as the source of all of the chemicals and all the dopamine and all the prolactin, vasopressin, serotonin that gets flooded into the system. What starts to happen there is that the brain also starts to shift and change. And not only do we get less and less willpower up here, not only are we not able to stop looking at porn because the willpower is shrinking, so now porn's getting stronger and stronger, we're getting weaker and weaker. What's also happening is that analytical brain, that ability to work hard, that ability to try harder, will start to feel more difficult for you. You're going to have a harder time achieving, doing, building things, being more logical, more reasonable. You're going to find yourself more emotional, more moody. You're going to find yourself in more contempt with your spouse or significant other. That's just a more likely response. You have more negative feelings going on inside of the body because there's a lot of extra chemicals and hormones that are going around everywhere that have nowhere to attach. and they leave you in a state of depression afterward. And not only that, of course, you might be stepping into a bit of a shame cycle with it all. So all of these reasons start to connect and come around, and you probably experience a lot of this in your life. And there's probably a lot of reasons that you tell yourself it's okay to look. Now we'll get a little bit more into that here in just a second, but first of all, let me introduce myself a little bit more. I am Erin Del Toro. I am a certified clinical hypnotherapist, as I said before, and I've been practicing for about 9 years. I have about 4,000 hypnosis sessions under my belt, and I specialize in behavior changes of all sorts, especially sexual addictions, porn, but I also help people quit all kinds of addictions. And I also work with trauma healing, especially with betrayal trauma, with women being able to step back into their power, or men who have been cheated on or their spouses had secrets. I really focus on that with a lot of spouses to rebuild esteem, to rebuild connection with self, to take back self-power again, so that we have two partners standing in their right space and in their right light. And I love working with couples. I do work with individuals. I work with couples as well, and love to help de-stimulate triggers that have been escalating fights or escalating issues, or dynamics, negative dynamics for a while. So we get a 95% success rate in our office when it comes to addiction change, when it comes to porn change, quitting porn, getting rid of masturbation, 95% success rate. And we have a 96% success rate when it comes to trauma recovery, healing from some of the batterings that a self-esteem can take, or that our hearts and bodies can start to be wounded with. We start to carry maybe depression or anxiety inside of the body because all of the trauma that starts to build up. And Joe Dispenza says that we have about 95% or so of our intellectual ability and thinking ability locked into our body everywhere because of all the trauma that we're storing in different places in our body. If you've ever read the body keeps the score, that kind of tells you a little bit there. Recommend it if you haven't read it yet. And then we have a 93% success rate with our marriage and family recovery. So that means with our couples who are coming to see us, we check back in 6 months later, see how they're doing. And if they're still together and they've been able to remove one of the triggers and one of the dynamics that they were in that were not good for them before, we call that a success. So good high numbers at our office, much higher than anything else you see out in the industry, and there's a good reason why. It's because, of course, we are using clinical hypnotherapy. So let's talk about that little elephant in the room. I am a clinical hypnotherapist, as I mentioned. So what we do is we do hypnotize and we do therapy. And the reason that the success rates are so high is because we're not having to work with your conscious mind. We are not having to battle that 95% of your brain that is really in charge of the show, that has all the programming, that already has everything that it's going on, everything that it's doing right now has been deeply in there for a very long time. It's not something you programmed yesterday. It's not something you programmed a year ago. It has been in there since you were a kid, and one program rides off another program, rides off another program. So what we end up doing, and what the reason that we're so successful, is we peel back those old programs, those old belief systems that are keeping you stuck and locked into the struggle that you're in. We switch things around. We'll talk more about it. Now, clinical hypnotherapy, a lot of people are a little, afraid when we say the word hypnosis. It can be a little daunting or a little bit scary. I totally understand that. And it took me a couple of years to get into clinical hypnosis and to actually try it as an individual. I had to watch people in my life who I knew very, very well. And they were the kind of people where you know them so well, you love them, and you also know that they're never going to see certain things about themselves, let alone change them, right? They just don't see it in themselves. You love them regardless, but that's the way they are. So I had these couple of people tell me, you've got to try hypnotherapy. You've been really struggling. I had been struggling with anxiety for quite a while. And so they were like, you've really been struggling. I hate to see you struggle. And I've tried it and it really helps. And I was like, ooh, it sounds kind of scary. I'd been to a hypnosis show, like several. I'd accidentally gone under in the crowd before. And that sounded really scary to me, to give over control to someone else and do therapy work. I was shocked and surprised to find out that it was not at all what I thought it was going to be. And the reason I got talked into it was I watched them and I saw something happen in both of them where I thought, wow, there's nothing on this earth that would have made me think that they would have seen that inside of themselves, let alone change it. And so seeing one of the closest people that I had to me in my life make the kind of changes and have new thought processes, new feelings, I was like, okay, I'm here for it. I'm sold. Let me try it. And once I did, I found that it was extremely spiritual. I felt very, very in control of my mind, more so than I ever did in my conscious thinking mind. I had more power. I had more light. I had more ability. I walked away from the session feeling like I had just, years taken off of me, and like it was 20, 30, 40 talk therapy sessions in one. I had all the big ahas, all the good things showed up for me there. And for most of my clients, by and large, we are getting big ahas. We are getting big, big understandings. We're releasing big chunks of old feelings that did not need to be there, never needed to be there. And that's what clinical hypnotherapy is really about. If you have someone who's doing it right and who knows what they're doing, they are going to help you find your real self. But you're going to be the person doing all of the exploring there, because all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. Now, clinical hypnotherapy has been endorsed by many different medical associations. I don't know if that matters or if it does to you, but American Medical Association, British Medical Association, American Psychological Association, the NIH, Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, Johns Hopkins, Harvard Medical School, and the largest religious institutions in the world have done studies with clinical hypnotherapy that show that, yes, it's one of the best behavior modification methods that we have out there, because we're actually getting into the theta waves. We're actually starting to make some difference and some change. Now, we know clinical hypnotherapy works, but our clients also know it works too. So just from a few of our clients here who we've had success with over the last year with pornography, quit masturbation. So from Jeff M., no more endless scrolling through Netflix to hope I find another scene accidentally. It has zero appeal to me. It's easy to see through the facade now. From Nathan T., I want to tell you that because of the work you did with me, our marriage is still thriving and I don't get that pull for porn like I used to. From Hannah C., a lot of girls my age struggle with this too, and I wish more of them knew about how it's possible to get over it and see yourself so differently. And from Josh B., I feel absolutely ready to get back to my mission now, and I'm confident in my worthiness. I love those feelings. We love to see our clients doing well. It is such a good feeling for us to see people getting more light and to be part of that process. I feel eternally grateful to be a part of that process for anyone who wants to come and step into their power. Now, people and you will align well with this program, with our Quit Pornography program, if you are ready to quit. If you've had a serious porn issue that's been sitting around for a long time and you are absolutely ready to be done with it, then this may be for you. If it sounds exciting, if it sounds good to you to get rid of it, if it kind of, gives you a little bit of a charge, like, yeah, I can see myself doing that. Wow, life would feel amazing. If you close your eyes for just a moment and imagine life without pornography, what you would feel like, what your life would look like, how you would feel, not only inside by yourself, but how do you feel with your family and how do you feel at work? And just kind of imagine what that whole experience would look like or be like. I want you to just kind of imagine that there. And if it does sound good, if it sounds exciting, if it seems like something you would be committed to invest time, effort, resources, energy, then this is going to be the program for you, because we have a really high success rate and we want to see you done with it. We are here on your team 100% to see you clear it out, get the old out, bring all the new light in. Now, we did talk about those 3 game-changing principles. We're going to just step into those really quickly. And number 1 is the reason that this hasn't been working for you so far, why you've been struggling for so long. And it's because you've been struggling with the conscious mind. Like I mentioned before, the conscious mind runs 5% of your day. So 5% of your day, you are going along, you have actual control. You have actual control 5% of your day, where you are making choices for yourself that are outside the other realm of the programs that have been set up inside of your subconscious mind. And those programs are running off of your beliefs. They're running off old feelings. They're running off old emotions that showed up there. when you were quite little, before you were 8. And before we're 8 years old, our neural pathways are on fire for change. They are just readily developing new thoughts, new ideas, new feelings, and especially if there's repetition in them, and especially if they are strong and emotional. And if we have a feeling when we are quite young, then what happens is they wire together and they create a program for you. They create a new program of what's going to happen in this kind of scenario when dad gets, when you drop the milk and dad gets upset with you, right? And what's going to happen, and the shame you're going to feel, the way your body is going to show up. It's going to have a flare of maybe shame or embarrassment or whatever. And so depending on dad's reaction, or if dad's like, oh yeah, no big deal, honey, let's clean it up together. And you might have a totally different kind of response there. But if you had a parent who, gave you some fear, even if it was just that we're not perfect, right? Like, we do our best, but sometimes we have a bad moment. And if we have a bad moment, our little kid at 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 can suddenly interpret that as something's wrong with them. And we can interpret that all the time, and we do it all the time. So number one, you've probably been working on your conscious thinking mind, stuck in your conscious thinking mind, thinking that that's the way to solve the problem, by going to group or by continuing to pray, which pray can get back into our deeper mind. But if we've been praying a certain way for a long time and we have a pattern of our prayer, and we're not letting our minds actually connect to the superconscious that's really there, then we get ourselves stuck in another kind of pattern. And that's something we can break with you here in hypnotherapy too. But what you want to do is stop thinking with the conscious mind. We're going to stop trying to make ourselves do this anymore. We're going to stop trying to put filters or squish ourselves or just not look right now while we're scrolling, while part of us still wants to look. Well, that's the other 95% that's running the program that says that it's okay for you to look because of X, Y, or Z, right? So stop doing things from the conscious thinking mind. Now, we're going to talk about some of the methods that you might be investing time and effort and energy into that might be holding you back really quick. And I want to go through these very briefly, but also mention they're not bad. None of these things are bad for you. They're good. They could support you in getting better, but you need to have them connected with other modalities that are actually going to make a difference to really strong habits or addictions that have been formed back in the back of your mind. And conscious mind thinking therapies are not going to do that for you. When it comes to these traditional conscious thinking therapies here, CBT, DBT, EMDR, any talk therapy, they all have very, very low efficacy methods, or very, very low efficacy levels. And those low efficacy levels of 32 to 75% going to 1 to 3 years of therapy once a week. I love the effort. Love that for those of you who have been doing this and wanting change, I love that, because you're still putting the effort there. However, one thing that can happen is if we start to put a lot of effort into something and it's kind of promised that it's going to work for us and it doesn't, it can start to give us some big doubts back in here in our mind. And then we could even deepen that identity that we're always going to be a porn user. And if we have a deeper identity back there, then we've got an old program running that's kicking out old thoughts and old beliefs that's going to keep sending out chemical impulses that tell our body that no, we're really a porn user. So we're going to keep using it. So don't do the things that are going to cause you to feel exhausted, like you're not getting anywhere, and not actually have some of the supporting factors that are going to get you somewhere. So there's things like therapy like that can actually keep us back. Definitely don't take medications and supplements to slow down your libido or to lower your testosterone. That's just going to cause more issues reverberating back inside the body. You don't need that. And that's just a band-aid method of like trying to corral yourself in instead of utilizing your sexual power, which is inside of you, for more than actually like sex. It actually is there for creation energy. And not just procreative energy, I'm talking about being creative. It's also there. You could actually take that same energy and stimulate it into a different direction. And all of that is stuff that you might do with your conscious thinking mind, but you've got to train your subconscious to do it first. So we'll talk about that here in a second. So no medications, no supplements. And then when it comes to the non-traditional therapies as well, such as energy clearings, cranial sacral work, Reiki, psychedelics. All these things can be positive. I'm all for good positive energy flow and good positive energy movement. All of these things can be very positive and promising pieces. However, most likely you're not going to get what you need. Energy clearings, you clear off energy, you run into another stimulus that shows up in your life, and your belief systems back here are still running on the old program. So the stimulus is going to run through the same way that it always did. And then you're going to jump out with the same problem again, because the energy is going to attach right back to you because you're right back in the behavior. So these things can sometimes work, but they're not going to be great until you clear out old belief systems. Next, psychedelics. Psychedelics can be helpful. I'm not telling you not to go do psychedelics and that it's, if you're utilizing them properly, that they can't be a helpful tool. I do think they can be if you're utilizing them properly. However, properly means with someone who also knows how to clear out old belief systems. You've got an actual therapist there who knows what they're doing, and they know how to clear belief systems, and they know how to put new belief systems into place for you so that you're not running on those programs anymore. Now, that's a pretty rare person, so if you found that person, great. But most of the people who show up in my office who have done psychedelics recently, and I actually get a lot of people who are like, okay, I did psychedelics, and now tell me what I'm going to do from here, because here's all the pieces I learned and I'm not sure what to do with it. So they bring it to, a person who now needs to help them rewire some of those thoughts back together. So just know that it has, can be helpful, but actually can cause more issues to open up as well. And then there's all the other things that you might be doing for free to change your conscious mind, like reading scriptures more, or looking to meditate more. Awesome stuff when it comes to meditation, but you got to know how to do it right. So we got to be working with those programs. We've got to actually have them right in the back of our minds. And that's one thing that we will do with you here, is help start to change how you meditate and change how you pray. Instead of going about it the same way, if you're not getting the answers, or you're not getting the direction or the clearing that you need from some of this old stuff, it's probably because there's something that you need to tap into a little deeper. And we do that with hypnosis. And then there's, all these old things. Addiction recovery groups can actually start to label you as an addict. And it seems like we can almost get into a way of thinking like this is normal. It's normal for us to look every once in a while. It's just part of life, but it's not. Your body does not need porn. Your body never needed porn. Your body needs no porn, because all it does is mess up your entire system inside, shrink your brain in different parts, and start to associate you more and more with pornography and disconnect you more and more from a person. And once we disconnect more and more from a person, what also starts to happen, one of the big things that's been happening for a while, is that guys are getting erectile dysfunction at a pretty young age. 35 years and younger is pretty common now. And it's because of porn use, because, we're not training our bodies and our minds to connect to what is actually natural and not fantasy, not something that's, fantastic, some crazy stimulus that we continue to get so much dopamine into the system. We're changing the way that the brain is really mapped. So what we need to know is, number 2, we need to understand something really clearly about pornography, and that is that your porn problem is an imagination problem. That's what it is. It's an imagination, belief lens, temptation, subconscious problem. And it has been around because it's been back here as we've been talking in these programs. So your porn problem somewhere back here got connected into being some sort of, I want to say, sedative, for lack of a better term. But you got a chemical concoction that happened the very first time you got curious and lustful, and you started to have a certain feeling about the images in a magazine or on the screen, or it could have just been a cartoon. It happens all the time, right? Just a little moment in a cartoon can start to stimulate some sexual feelings if you see something a little naughty or a little risque or something like that. And what can happen is a little kid's mind or a teenager's mind can amplify that up here, bring it back into their memories. It becomes part of the emotion that they may have been experienced that was negative before, starting to make them feel like, oh, if I'm lonely or bored or isolated or home alone or whatever, then this feeling can show up and make it better for me. And it might have only happened 1 or 2 times and then you left it alone, but then you came back to it in your later teen years, or back to it in your 20s, or back to your 30s or whatever. And it fed back in again. And it fed back in so easy and so naturally because there's a program back there running that says that porn's okay. Somewhere back there, it says that if we get a stimulus that comes into our environment, whatever that is, it could be that we see some, sexy chick at the grocery store, or we're scrolling through social media, we get that stimulus, that somehow it's okay for it to cross this critical factor filter right here. This is our belief system filter, deciding whether or not that's going to be part of us or not part of us. And if we let it across the line here and back into our defense, boy, we can start to make it part of us and taking it even deeper. And then it becomes an emotion and a memory that starts to come out anytime we have a need to get rid of loneliness, or anytime we have a need to get rid of boredom, or, whatever negative feeling shows up, because somewhere back there, we've attached it to the association of pleasure, right? Because of course, sexual stimulus is going to equal pleasure. And that comes out as a behavior again. And then we get any kind of small stimulus that comes in and it connects back in with that old imagination feeling again. It ramps back up again, and it goes on and on and on. This is part of a belief lens that we end up running in our brains. A belief lens can be all kinds of things. So they could be an emotion that shows up in a particular situation where we enter into that situation, the emotion just floods our entire system, or we get a pit in our stomach, or we get, a tightness in our shoulders or whatever. A belief lens can sometimes be an emotion almost that's connected to a scene that we show up into, like boredom or isolation. Or maybe we see, a woman in a bikini at the swimming pool, and we're with our wife, but we find ourselves suddenly immediately attracted. And it's because, part of us, obviously, if you're a guy or even a girl, you're wired sexually. And part of us is wired to respond to that. But when we have an old imagination part, or an old part of us that says that not only can, I respond to this physically, I'm also going to bring it into my imagination and ramp it up and then go and act out on it sexually, or maybe masturbate it out or whatever, right? Later, if we've got those old belief systems running in there and we see that stimulus, it's going to be really, really hard for that 5% of us to overcome and battle out that thought before it bounces back into our belief system back here and becomes part of us. So what we need to do is analyze where these old belief lens came into our lives, where they started to show up, why they started to show up, and get some answers. And then rewrite those neural pathways so that no longer when a stimulus comes in, does it feel like you need to look some more, or you need to keep going, or you need to run home and look at porn, or you need to find yourself in the bathroom, or, back in the shower or whatever. No longer does that happen. If you see a stimulus that comes in, instead, you're going to be able to kick those things back out. Something different's going to happen, because what we're going to do here in the program that we have is help you learn what your subconscious mind actually does and how powerful you really are. You're going to be kicking old things back out like this. You're going to be turning temptations down like nothing. You're going to feel yourself being filled with power and light, because that's where you meant to be here. That's what your spirit was looking to do when you came here, was to be completely filled with power and light, and to exit this life full of your power and your light. Not exiting this life like you need to, continue on with the negative feelings because they're still stuck to you. Because those same old temptations, those same old things will still be stuck to you. If that's the frequency that you leave this life with, that's what you'll take up with you. And you might find yourself wandering about, stuck around, versus clearing all the dark out and letting yourself attach to more and more light. Now, we want you to be able to do this by putting, clearing out the old belief lens, putting on new belief lens, understanding more clearly who you really are, and how to get rid of old exterior influences, old feelings, old negative resonances that have been hanging around you for a very long time, and maybe possibly some adversarial, some negative influences that aren't even a part of you, that never were supposed to be a part of you, that it's time to just completely disconnect from. That's one of the things we're going to teach you how to do with your powerful subconscious mind here. And when it comes to number 3, I think I've talked enough on it already, but it is clinical hypnotherapy. That is the fastest solution on the planet. And it's the fastest solution because we are down in your theta waves where you were from the time you were, 1 year old to the time that you were 8 years old being programmed. What we get to do is go down there and let you pick how to reprogram your mind. Choose how you want it to go. Choose how to clear out all the old, bring in all the light and all the new, and let you be the person in charge. And that's the beautiful thing with clinical hypnotherapy is you do get to step into your own power again. And you're going to find the places where you accidentally dropped it off or left it behind from in different situations, different experiences, different influences that maybe were just like small, tiny little moments in life. But there were little moments that adjusted the way you thought and felt about who you are and your power. And we're going to pick those things back up for you so that you're living in it 100%. Now, our program is for people who are really, really serious because we have a high success rate, and we have a high success rate for a reason. Our client assessment manager is going to talk to you and go through every detail of the program step by step and make sure that it's a program that's going to align for you. We want to make sure that you're ready for this next step in your life and that we will be a good fit for you as well. Now, you will probably have 1 to 3 one-on-one hypnotherapy sessions, as well as workshops and a lot of recordings where you will actually just be able to make some changes overnight. And there's good research behind that because you're in your theta waves as you sleep overnight. You're going up and down through these theta waves, and you're able to start making some changes right away. So you'll get into our program, we'll start making the changes right away, and those changes are just going to happen more and more exponentially for you as you get deeper in the next few weeks into the program. To see if you're a good fit, go ahead and visit our website. And here would be your next steps. You've got a free 45-minute assessment call with our client assessment manager, where you'll get all your questions answered and understand more and more about the program. You can go ahead and book this right on our website and our Calendly link there, or you can go ahead and give us a call. The number is on the website. We look forward to helping you out here at familiesgettinghelp.com. And thank you for your time today. Bye-bye now.